Hey, cunts, don't forget to click the subscribe button.
These tests have 95% correlation to your success. It's really 99, but I say 95. You've heard me say this before, because then I can't get sued. But I can tell from your test scores who's going to make it first, who will never make it. There's a couple of you in this room that need psychiatric help. You're on the, I'm not making a joke about it, because you scored so poorly. Doesn't mean you can't be on the Hall of Fame, but you need help, and I'm not the guy to give it to you. We have people that take these tests 200 times a month or more, and Google only keeps track of 200. Plus 200 we don't know. 200 times. We have guys that take it 50 times a day, and they get the same answer over and over. 50 fucking times a day. A couple of you in this room. And you know who I'm talking about. We started with the success test. And the correlation to success was overwhelming vis-a-vis your score. The perfect score is -3. We have 2 or 3 of you in this room that got -3. But then you fucked up the other tests. We rarely ever get anybody that maxes or close to maxes all the tests. Once in a, as they say in Texas, once in a fucking while we do. Once in a while. Not too often though. The first time I took the success test, and I'd like to say that I came up with the success test, that'd be a lie. That'd be like a tip, a lie, because I didn't. I borrowed it from 2 psychiatrists from Boston, and 30 years ago, even before I started the seminars, and I've been using it ever since. And then the optimism test and pessimism test, I also borrowed from some other real bright psychiatrists, maybe 15, 20 years ago. And then the snowflake test, we came up with about 3 or 4 years ago. And the snowflake test has a 96.4% failure rate by the people that take it. And we have thousands and thousands and thousands of people take it. And then I came up with a super success test, maybe in the last year and a half. And we have about a 96 or 97% ratio of failure. How can you, and in one of the webinars we didn't see, Anelli's first or second webinar, not the one we saw yesterday, he said, I kept taking the success test and the test over and over and over. And I kept getting the same results. And then it dawned on me I wasn't changing my answers and I wasn't changing my input. So you could take the test 1,000,000 times. If you don't change the input, it's going to come up with the same result, right? Okay. Garbage in, garbage out. And then he goes on to say, then I realized what had to change was me. And I could take the test from now until I was, 1,000 years old. The tests were meant to, in the beginning, give you a basis so you know where you're coming from. But certain things, as we've discussed the first couple of days, that's deeply rooted in your DNA can never change. It's in Asia, even though Asians are brown skin kind of, it's very popular, not a cult, but a pastime, to lighten your skin. Lighten your skin with everything from creams to infusions, injections, and all kinds of shit. And I lived in Asia almost 15 years, and I know some of the people, wealthy people, mostly gals, and they've been doing these treatments, and I've known a couple of them 10 years, and to the best of my knowledge, I've gone back and we've taken pictures of Christmas 10 years ago and then Christmas, and they look the same fucking color to me. I mean, we've had black people come here that put shit on their skin to make them less black. We've had black people come here, I'm looking at a couple of the blacks over there, that put shit on their skin to make more black. We've had people come here that were black. I used to show the pictures, but now a couple of lawsuits, and the guy said he wasn't black. And I'd go around and ask the black people in the audience, like the three you hear, and you'd go, well, taking out the four-letter words, you'd go, he's black. But there's certain things about your personality that are never going to change. Ever, ever, ever. And I thought, wrongfully, and you can never underestimate how wrong you can be, I thought wrongfully, if you knew where you were, you know how to grow from there. But instead, it had pretty much the opposite effect. Well, fuck, I'm fucked. Fuck, I mean, what can my grandparents fucked me and I'm just fucked. These are variations of just profiles. They're profiling you, which you're not supposed to do anymore. You can't profile people when you hire them for work now. I do. Are you pregnant? Are you going to be pregnant? Are you going to have babies? Have you had your hysterectomy taken out? These are some of the questions I ask, which you can't. Are you this gay all the time? Because all that makes a difference. Contrary to what popular belief says today, all those answers to those questions make a fucking difference in how you approach life and, more importantly, success. Yet, for the most part, you can't ask those. When I went back to university, and I didn't have to go back, but I did to make my mother happy because I would be the only one on her side of the family to ever graduate from college, or go to college for that matter. And I went through, after flunking out three times, arguably 4 times, before I went in the military, and I came back, and I went through a 4-year degree in 2.5 years with honors, blah, 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 blah. And I only went on 2 interviews. And I was the most highly qualified graduate of 1971 for the school you got to explain about. And the 2 Fortune 500 companies that I interviewed with, I had 6 interviews with one and 7 interviews with the other. The one I had 7 interviews with, I went all the way up to the vice chairman. And I got no job offers. And the head of personnel of the other Fortune 500 company called me. He was a military guy back from the Vietnam War. We were similar. He was about 10 or 15 years older than I was. And he said, Dan, let me buy you a drink. And we're sitting there having a drink, and he said, I believe we owe you an answer why you didn't get an offer. And I had already forgotten about it. I moved on. Okay, well, I made my bed, I made my roll, and I crapped out both times. So, what can I learn from that? I got to move on. And he said that you were easily the most qualified for the 1971 graduates that we interviewed. Nobody even compared to you. So now I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm going to get an offer now. And I said, well, thank you very much. But he says, having you come to work here, it was ascertained from the 2nd or 3rd interview that it would be like sticking a square peg in a round hole. It would never work. Not on the short term, intermediate term, or long term. The vice chairman that I had the 7th interview with, the other Fortune 500 company, said something similar. And he said, the reason why you got kicked up to me is because no one was willing to fail you in your interviewing process because they thought you were going to come back and buy the company and fire them. I'm 26 years old, 25 years old when this is happening. And I said, thank you very much. And I figured, well, I better go to Wall Street. That's where the action is. So, and I was right. Where people like, with my personalities, flourished on Wall Street and got rich, pissing people off. But the profiling tests they did on me back then, not these kind of tests, I knocked them all out of the park. I knocked them all out of the park. And this was before, like Google, they interview 8 times now, and Microsoft. And those days, 50 years ago, they interviewed you once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times. That's it. So I've been like this a long, long, long time. And the first time I took all these tests, I got a maximum grade. Maximum. I've never taken the test again. We don't spend time on the test other than this short segment that I'm ranting and raving about, because for you to make QLA work, there has to be a lot of personal work done on yourself, or you can't. It won't happen. And then you go to Reddit and you'll say, well, QLA doesn't work. And what you should write, you should go to Reddit. QLA didn't work for me because I'm a lazy cunt with no balls. Then, thank you. Write that. You heard Gerard say at least 3 or 4 or 5 times, stand up like a man with your head held high with some balls, right? That's very hood. That's very neighborhood. You know, whatever kind of neighborhood you come from, that's very, you know, very ghetto. Stand up like a man like you had a pair. And we've had kids come through the seminar, some of you in this room, that have never been spanked by your parents, never reprimanded physically. We've had kids in this room that have never been yelled at by their parents. We have kids in this room that have never been in a fist fight on the school grounds. It's beyond my belief how you can go in grammar school and have never been in a fight. It's beyond my belief. I don't understand how that could happen. Except that all the kids are wusses now. It's not just you. They all lack moral fortitude, strength. You heard in one of the webinars when they asked the young kid, kid from Harrow, the one little skinny guy that was in the front row, how do you keep up your energy? And I looked at you. Nobody laughed. Except me. Because you were interested in the answer. How do you keep up your energy? Are you fucking shitting me? Is this a class or a course in comedic humor? How do you keep your fucking energy? What he was really asking is, how do I stay motivated? And if you're worried about that, again, you came to the wrong motherfucker. And that's the other reason that I did away with the mentor program. Other than we had no direct correlation whether I kept you, what I really did is I kept people in the game that should have been out of the game. Because I'm not going to be out there, as Gerard said. I'm not going to be out there to answer questions. I'm not going to be out there to hold your hand. And when we went back and looked at because the mentor program started in August of 2010. And we went back and looked at all that it produced and all the results, and we keep a lot of records. Basically, I kept at least 30% of the kids in the game longer than they should have been kept in the game. And I could have spent that 30% of time on people that were in the game that I could have helped excel their success. But instead, it was wasted on the 30% that I kept in the game. The tests are crucially important. the results thereof. You know the results that you got. But you got to put them in perspective. If you're one of the ones there that, needs mental help, you should get it. Not me. Because I don't really give a fuck if you die, fail. I'm only concentrated now, the last couple of years, on the people that are going to succeed, because I can make a difference from somebody who's succeeding in 50 million as opposed to making 500 million. I'm not that good at getting you to $1 million when you don't believe you deserve $1 million. I'm good at the quantum leaps, pun intended. But I'm not there to hold your hand as my mother held my hand when we walked off to school that first day when I was 4 or 5 years old. Because my dad invented tough love. And tough love works. And now I see what the world's like without it. And it's pretty miserable. Pretty miserable. Now, you saw last night Nick, my buddy Nick, tennis guy, who I happen to have talked to. I tried to convince him to do something. I wanted to do something with him, and he was a cranky old guy. He still is a cranky old guy. And we were going to do something. We were going to do a joint, some kind of project at the U.S. Open, which they just played the U.S. Open. But this was 2 U.S. Opens ago. What are some of the takeaways from the movie? Yes, sir.
There are a lot of similarities in how he does things and how we do things here. Well, as far as you do things.
Well, I'm glad you're including yourself there, but that's okay. If love worked, you wouldn't be here. If religion worked, you wouldn't be here. Who utilizes religion the most? Poor people. Who does the Catholic Church have most control over? Poor people. It'd be nice if religion worked. It'd be nice if love worked. But as they say in this part of the world, it doesn't. Because they can't speak English up here because they're retarded. It doesn't have any effect. Most of you in this room had some form of nourishment, love, nourishment from somebody in your family. Not everybody. There's 1 or 2 that didn't. Mom died when I was born. Blah, blah, blah. Dad left me when I was 3. Yeah. Those aren't really important until it happens to you. I tell the story about Lee Trevino, who I knew in a different lifetime. He's been struck by lightning 5 times. It's the statisticians and the physicists, it's impossible. You can't be hit by lightning 5 times. The probabilities are too great that you can't. But you can't tell Lee that. Lee won't go out in the rain. He won't go out if there's a cloud in the sky. Because, by the way, a golf club is a conduit for electricity, and he's been struck 5 times. So when it happens to somebody else, it's a statistic. When it happens to you, it's 100%. It's 100%. And some of you, you would deem it luck or fortune. Some of you, the only fortune you've had is bad. Some would deem that the only fortune I've had is good. But I made all the shit happen in my life. I was a shit disturber since I'm a little boy. Troublemaker. They used to call it shit disturber. But now you can't even say shit disturber now. So, a troublemaker. Or now they say I was unsettled. I don't know what the fuck they say now. It doesn't matter. But Steve Jobs made all the things happen. Okay, Nick, who has 180, 185 world champions under his belt, if I remember correctly. What else about? Yes, sir.
He didn't dwell on anything. He just moved forward, made controversial sacrifices and decisions, but just kept going. He was not stopping for anybody.
And he didn't know how to play tennis, which is the most important thing about the film. He didn't know how to play tennis. He didn't know his industry. He didn't know the mechanics. He didn't know anything. Yet, what do you want? You want to know, right? He didn't know a motherfucking thing about tennis. The greatest tennis coach in the history of the world. What does that say about you? The second best fact is he couldn't remember his 8 wives' names. I like that fact better myself. Because they're history. Why? Why no? Ex-wives, I only have one, but I mean, ex-wives are associated normally with misery of some form. What else about Nick?
He didn't want to be loved, he wanted to be respected.
When the Chinese Sovereign Fund asked me to come back and try to help them in 2008 and 9. And our young son, Derek, he was a recently minted MBA at that time, was sitting in the back with 2 sons of the Chinese diplomat guy. And this was a 3-row limousine. And I and the diplomat guy were sitting in the second row. Derek is telling him in Mandarin, because he spoke Mandarin. He went to the University of Shanghai. My father doesn't care if we love him. He just wants us, he demands, which isn't true, our respect, when we're, in 20 years from now. And the Chinese kids, back and forth, and then related, and then the father of the 2 Chinese kids and I, they were sitting in the front row. Then they flipped into English, because they wanted to make sure that Derek understood every word that they were saying. And then he said to me, asked me later on at dinner that night, if that was true. I said, fuck yes. By perchance some kind of love comes out of this years from now, that'll be okay, but I'm not expecting it. Because I didn't raise my kids to be my pension fund, as all Asian families do. I didn't raise my kids to adorn me with fucking gifts. We raised our kids to be able to stand up and be successful on their own. And that's why when they both got out of school, I didn't make one phone call to get them a job. Not one. And after 6 or 7 months, Sally says, they're having trouble getting jobs. She said it twice, because they got out of school at different times. Well, fuck. I hope they don't have to go homeless. My dad didn't raise me to love him. I saw my dad cry twice. Twice. I saw 2 tears. If a tear means crying, I saw 2 tears roll down his left cheek, right here. Once at his older brother's funeral, and once at his older sister's funeral. And the tear, there was so little water, the tear didn't even make it all the way down. It kind of evaporated by the time I got here. That's the extent of the emotion I saw in my father, ever. And the last 7 or 8, 9 years of his life, and Sally and I used to go visit him all the time in Palm Springs, he'd ask Sally, why is Dan come and see me? We go 2-3 times a year. Why does Dan come and see me now? This is after 40, 50 years of not seeing him. And she says, well, Manny, you're 88 now, or whatever his age was. Oh, I get it. I'm going to die. He said, yeah, okay, well, I'm happy to see him. But he was raised without the benefit of a dad, because his dad died in the last pandemic from the last Corona in 1918, 1919. So he never saw his father. He died a few months before he was born. So you've got the world's best coach who doesn't know how to play tennis. How do you process that in your little fucking brains? How? You haven't even tried to process it. That's something you ought to think about, you fucking retards. the greatest of all time, can't play the fucking game. And all you want to do is know how to do it. And more importantly to you is why. Does anybody have any comments about that? Any words of wisdom? Because he's not insecure. Because he has self-esteem. Because he has self-confidence. And more importantly than all the three things I just said, he knows it doesn't make a shit whether he knows how to or not. All he knows is he knows how to motivate people to perform at the highest level. That's it. What else about him? Yes, sir, in the back.
He had an ego the size of the sun, and if you got near him, you just bend.
Correct. As the young man back there said, he practices QLA for tennis. He didn't say it that way, but he does. He does. In fact, he's the closest to the QLA model that you're going to hear. The closest, until you get to the last guy the last night, which we'll keep it a secret for right now, that is the only one that you're going to hear an icon that's even practices closer to the guidelines of QLA. But I could, some people say I should end the seminar right here. Now you go out, having seen that film, and him not knowing how to play tennis, now you go out and practice QLA. You don't need to know anymore, because you don't. You people didn't need to be here. I don't feel like I ripped you off like most of the other guys do. But you got all the information. Oh, Kat, I found the, what do you call it? It's the quality of earnings. Would you pass them out? Quality of earnings. Anything else about Nick?
He didn't want to be like any.
Pardon?
He didn't want to be like any other coach. He wanted to be different and be the best, and he only wanted winners to focus his attention on. So
if I were to judge you, we used to put this on your information that you send me. If I were to judge you of the 5 people that you spend most of the time with, would I judge you as a high-performance person? No. And that counts for everybody in the room. Remember, the first 7 or 8 years of life, as self-esteem is built, you're normally around a mom, maybe a dad, a grandparent, an older brother or sister or something, right? What do they know about creating high-performance people? Nothing. And somehow you've been led to believe that being high performance, wrongfully by the other guys, is stressless, stress-free. As Dr. Oppenheimer said from the Manhattan Project, and those are the scientists that made the atomic bomb, how would you start? I would focus, I would create an atmosphere of stress, controlled stress. When you go back and you reevaluate, or when you start reevaluating what you've done to date, which is not much, and you compare it to, is there any stress in your life? And you then interject, you want to put stress in your life. I look for problems. I step into the breach. I said yesterday, I've always stepped into the breach. I've always run towards a gunfire. I've never run away. Partially because that's where the action is. The action is where the gunfire is. The action is where the deals are. The action is me convincing the commercial banks to give me the money when I want the money, not when they want to give me the money. It's leadership. Me getting you kids to do what I know you want to do, to be what you don't want to do, to be what you want to be. I get you to do it. You still don't believe you're 2,000 cold calls away from millions. Even though you've heard Andreas, 1,613. So I can tell you that the information is very accurate. 1,000, when I looked at your faces when he said 1,613, you all look, now, some of you look more ill than others. And the question's going to come up sooner or later. No, you don't hire a call center in Manila to make your calls. You don't hire people to do this because then you learn nothing. We've had people that hired third parties to do the calls that stole their deals. Hire a 22-year-old law student, this is better than law school. I'll just steal this deal. And he ran like a thief in the night. He made all the calls. He made all the introductions. You cannot do this without stress. If you have sales background, it's slightly easier. But it's not easy. It's slightly easier because you understand rejection. The kid, the first day said after you make 300 cold calls or so, you become numb. I forget what the words he used. You become numb. It'll take you more than 300 calls to become numb. I still don't like cold calling. And I've made, I don't know how many calls. A lot of calls. But I enjoy the art of selling and making the sale. So that drives me to make more calls. I enjoy getting you to do what you don't want to do because you don't want to buy the shit, whatever I'm selling. I enjoy inflicting my will over yours. To me, it's like a fight. And once you go down, you're not going to get up again. Contrary to the movies. You're going to stay down until I see your brains oozing out of your skull. Anything else about Nick? What was the other thing you saw? Go ahead.
He doesn't give a fuck about anyone's opinion?
Yeah. I mean, guys, they're all the same. Why when you say it with such shock and dismay? Do you think Elon gives a fuck about you? No. Do you think Donald? Or maybe, no. Do you really think they do? Well, then why do you look so dismayed when I bring it up? You look dismayed because you know it's not you. And you know it's going to be a rough motherfucking road. And those speed bumps are Mount Everest. Dan's lying. Dan said he never tells a lie. Well, he's lying because those speed bumps are Mount fucking Everest. But they're not. They're not. None of these guys give a fuck. So that begs the question for some of you intellects, why do I give a fuck? Not this kid. I mean, why do you give a fuck? Because you'd rather be liked than effective. Does everybody understand what I mean when I say you'd rather be liked than effective? That's a half-assed way of saying you're a pleaser. You're going to hear a couple of pleasers today that are rich. And with tears in his eyes. It's been fucking hard. It's not my personality. It just isn't. But I was desperate. I would rather people not like me and be rich. But you're going to hear a guy with tears in his throat saying how fucking hard it is to come over to the dark side. That's the most fun I have, is flipping them to the dark side. In the trophy room were animals, a lot of animals when I used to hunt. I fell off the wall. I don't know how it fell off, though. It's been up there 30 plus years. And coincidentally, the animal that fell and I don't believe in coincidences, is the first animal I shot, and I ate its heart while it was still pumping. Boom, 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 blood. Now, maybe it's a coincidence that the old boy just, after being up there on the wall 30 plus years, I don't think it is, though. Because I remember that was out of my comfort zone. I could close my eyes and I can still feel the heart pumping in my hand. Part of the heart hanging down my thing like this. We're contemplating whether I'm going to hang him up again or not, or I'm just going to leave him there in the middle of the floor of the trophy room. Or we got to find a new place for him anyway. It was a new place. Okay. Anything else about, you saw what else last night? Pardon? Motivation. Well, I mean, I'm not interested in your comments about that. Anything else about the tennis player? If you left today, remember, and you're going to hear a couple other people, Jobs didn't understand other than these guys don't understand like you understand because they know it's not necessary. In some cases, like Steve Jobs, it just clogs up your brain with useless information. You saw the slide yesterday with Albert Einstein. The people that read, all you guys that read, clogging your brain up with shit. Because somebody told you. Now, when I went to high school, in 1963, the National Association of Teachers in America, in about 1995 or 1998, they did a study. Because education has been going down, or the amount of knowledge that the kids have when they finish the 12th grade has been going down. So they did this big survey and study, and they saw that education basically in America peaked out in 1963. A high school degree in 1963 was worth about 2 years of college in 1995. Coincidentally, I graduated from high school in 1963. In 1963, my last year in high school, I missed 173 days of school. 173. There's only about 199 days in school when you take the summer vacation, Christmas, and all the shit out. I don't know how I learned anything. When they gave you books, you had a book locker. I don't know if they still do that. And you had a combination. You put all your shit in the locker. I put all my books in the locker, and then the last day of school, I opened the locker, and when I took the books out, there was a dust ring around the bottom book because I never moved the books. I never opened the book. I graduated from high school with a 2.55 average out of 4. And I missed 173 days of school. 3 weeks before graduation, they used to have an enforcer on the campus. They don't have those now. And it was usually an ex-football player or one of the football coaches that was a guy that would break up fights and punch the kids and shit like that. And Hank Leeds brought us into his office. Ruben Munoz, who is currently serving life for murder in Florida, Walt Wojak, and myself. And he gave us our diplomas and said, we don't want you on campus anymore. We don't want you to go through graduation. Leave. So we took our diplomas and we put them in our back pocket. We went a few miles away down to a pool hall where we used to play 9-ball. And on the 8th or 9th pitcher of beer, Walt Wojak, who was the intellect of the three of us, said, Martin Luther King just marched. I got a dream. We got fucking rights. They can't throw us off campus like this. So we went marching back to campus, and we kicked the door down of his office, and we threw the diplomas in his face. and said, you can't keep us off campus. We got fucking rights. And I said, I'm going to burn the motherfucking school down. I was not successful in burning the school down, although I tried. Thank goodness. I could have lived with people dying in the school, though. I wouldn't be crying about that. But this is the kind of kid I was. This is the kind of kid I was. So the fact that I learned anything is beyond me. I don't know how I learned anything. Okay, YouTube.